Welcome to another edition of Catch a Memory Outdoors right here on WWBC. We appreciate you guys and gals tuning in every Saturday morning to check out what's going on. And, of course, you can get us on 1510 AM, right? You can get us on 99.9 FM in the north part of Brevard County on our low-power FM frequency, 94.7 in the middle part of Brevard County, and 100.7 in the south part of Brevard County. And our producer, Paul, says you can get it on your Apple Watch if you have an Apple Watch. So that's pretty cool, huh? Well, that's actually a red fish there, yeah. Now, can you listen over your Apple Watch phone, or you just, what's it got going on there?
No, it's just hooked up to my phone.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
It's just telling me we're on the air.
It's on. And, of course, the WWBC app, you can download us onto your mobile device and take us with you anywhere. You can go to catchamemory.outdoors.com and click on the Listen Live tab, and that will get you, if you're listening over a computer. And, of course, now we're Facebook Live, so we appreciate you guys and gals. Every Saturday, tuning in, seeing what's going on. It's Red Snapper weekend, and the things that I have to say about this. We want to let you know this segment of the show is brought to you by Blue Points Marina before we go any farther, because Blue Points Marina's got a fantastic operation. Make sure you stop out there. Check them out if you guys and gals are looking for a place to keep your boat. 150-mile-an-hour wind rating on their building, and it can actually help your insurance because of that wind rating, and you're keeping it in a secure place. I'm Captain Jim Ross, and once again, we appreciate y'all tuning in from 7 to 9 every Saturday morning. And Dr. Mitch Roffer is in with me this morning. How's it going this morning, Dr. Mitch?
It's going great. I wish I was out there fishing for red snapper. So some beautiful pictures of people fishing out of the port yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh, they were really nice, beautiful reds that people could finally land. So good for them, and I wish them the best of luck.
It's nice that we have the opportunity. I'm still in disagreement with it, though. Honestly, I am still in disagreement. In my opinion, if there's not enough fish in that ocean for you to open it up for a longer season than 4 days, then keep it closed.
Well, I agree with you, too. The management is a little bit misguided, and we could do at least one show, never mind a segment on this.
Yeah.
But to summarize my feelings, I really think it should be managed county by county, and whatever the population is in your county, so be it, because these things range from the Keys and from the Caribbean all the way up to North Carolina. So,
or at least in a zonal or regional type of a scenario. How many red snapper do they catch in Key West?
Yeah.
Very few. They're just not really there. The Palm Beaches, they're just not really there.
Well, they used to be there until the human population increased.
Yeah, but up here, holy cow. We've got, but from here to Jacksonville, it's ridiculous how many red snapper that we have. We mentioned it before the show that there's very few places, very few pieces of structure outside of 65 or 70 feet of water that you can go to and drop a bait on and not catch a red snapper. Now, are they all giants? No. Some of them are only a pound or two. But when I can go to the 9-mile buoy at the end of the Southeast Shoal, straight due east of Port Canaveral, when I go to that buoy to jig some sardines or some cigar minnows, and I'm catching red snapper on my sabiki rig,
that's called abundance.
Maybe they're not quite as, extinct, endangered, whatever term you want to use, to vent your frustration about such a mismanagement policy that's going on with that species. I just feel that there should be better regulations than what we currently have. And to say that our current regulations are the only option possible, in my opinion, is just absolutely close-minded. You're not looking at the actual data that you're collecting and they're going out and collecting. FWC in in-state waters, red snapper are legal year-round. The problem is we don't have very many places within state waters where snapper can be found. But on the federal side of that, it's just such a fiasco. It's so mismanaged that I just really don't agree with, if 4 days that's just, to me, it's an absolute waste of time. Maybe I'm totally missing this, but to see the boat ramp at Port Canaveral and at Ponce Inlet and at Sebastian Inlet this morning at 5 a.m., can you imagine what that looked like?
It's a great weekend to do a census on what boaters are actually using and what they're taking on board, and great place to market if you're a marketer on different products. I mean, wow. Yeah, it's you and I have talked about this over the years, over and over and over again, and I really like your management ideas on this about the numbers you could take. Once you catch them, you're done, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I fully feel that if there truly is a problem, then alleviate the pressure off of the other species and off of the red snapper themselves. Because for you to go try to catch a gag grouper, for you to go catch a triggerfish, for you to go catch a mangrove snapper, a vermilion snapper, a black sea bass, you're going to have bycatch that is going to include lots of red snapper. And so to be bringing red snapper up and then just basically discarding them, hoping that they live, maybe they do, maybe they don't. A lot of them, especially the deeper water fish outside of 150 feet, they just float away behind the boat until a shark or barracuda eats them. So that is, once again, mismanagement, because you're targeting a gag grouper, but you're catching 25-pound red snapper that you're then, they're not being properly managed. They're not being properly looked after. And that part of the resource really is what bothers me, because I see a 10-to-1 catch ratio on red snapper to grouper or to any other species. And to discard basically 10 snapper to catch one of something else, you're not doing that species any justice whatsoever. So that's my opinion on it. A lot of other people have opinions. A lot of other people are like, hey man, 4 days is great. I'll take my 4 days, and that's fine if that's what's legally allowed. That's great. But the species as a whole is just, in my opinion, it's just so mismanaged. It's just, and how we can continue to go along with what's being done for that species it's kind of shocking to me, because I consider myself to be a halfway intelligent person, and I can't make any rhyme or reason out of anything that's going on with red snapper right now. And there's a whole lot of people with a whole lot of paper saying that they're a whole lot smarter than me that are supposed to be figuring this out.
Well, in terms of management, there's that release problem, whether it's in season or today, and you're going to catch the biggest and keep the biggest, and unfortunately, people call, and you're not supposed to do that. But now they have this release device, which, it's been proven under professional care that you're supposed to take the fish, release it at a certain depth, let it sit there, and then it overcomes some of the problems related to the depth and the air bladder going up.
Barotrauma.
But the barotrauma problem is still going to happen with the number of people out there, the inexperience that they are with using these devices. These devices are new.
Well, at least, so for those of you that don't know, right now, if you're going to go engage in any kind of bottom fishing as of July 1, not just red snapper, but any kind of bottom fishing, you're supposed to now have a state reef species recreational license / permit to be able to do that. So if you don't have that, go to myfwc.com and get it, because you are not in compliance if you have a bottom species or go bottom fishing and you don't have it. You're out of compliance. It's
you
just
also
like
need
having
that
a
device.
fishing license. As of the 15th, the descending device is required, which still kind of, why would you require somebody to have a permit on the 1st, but they don't have to have a descending device until the 15th? 3 days of the 4-day red snapper season are going to have been completed and in the books, and then you're required to have a descending device. Once again, my piece of paper that I got when I went to college, it doesn't compare to some of these others, but, I'm kind of thinking my piece of paper might be a little better. Just me. Just saying.
Well, the red snapper management is working great for the lagoon because you can go to the lagoon now and catch all sorts of mangrove snappers, more than I've ever seen in the lagoon.
That is one benefit that we have seen, is that there are this whole lagoon system, and Mitch, you're a big part of water quality and water management issues throughout the whole state, not just here, actually throughout the world, really. I mean, when how many places have you been that water quality issues have taken you to that location or to that summit or to that conference?
I would say quite a few places and halfway around the world. Water quality issues are not unique to Brevard County. From the poorest of the poor countries to the richest of them all, which is the United States, water quality issues is forefront, whether it's drinking water or water for the animals.
So I have a question. You, having been all over the world and seen these problems arising all over the world, is it the poor countries that don't have, let's say, environmental protection standards, or they're laxed, or they just don't care? Is it the poor third world countries, we'll call them, that are having more issues? Or is it the supposedly top tier countries like the United States, where we're all relatively knowledgeable about it, we're have an affluent population? Where do you see the worst water quality issues? That's interesting.
Well, some of the worst water quality issues is like in India, I think are in the underdeveloped countries, where they're losing their water. They don't have any water in a lot of cases, and it's really polluted. But just a fine line. But then again, you look at Flint. So here we are, Flint, Michigan, where people are drinking that water and dying and being poisoned. There's no different from that than being in the Ganges River in India or off the Amazon. So it's bad in the United States. I mean, you can't underplay how bad the water quality issues are. Drinking water to bathing water to just water for the ecosystem.
So a country's overall affluence has really no determining factor on their water quality issues, it sounds like.
No, for years people didn't understand or didn't want to understand it. Then they put limits on, but the limits aren't enforced. And if you do have a few officers that do have the time to actually do the monitoring and then give someone a ticket, then they go to court, and the fines, if they get any, are so small it's below the cost of doing business. So it doesn't bother anybody.
So it's easier to just continue to do bad business and pay the fine than it is to do business the correct way.
Oh, easily, without a problem. And that's been the problem in Florida for years. Not just Florida, everywhere in the United States. So the Mississippi is that water, which used to be pristine and beautiful and great, and all the people that use it for the water supply, that's polluted as can be. We have this black zone of deoxygenated water in the Gulf of Mexico. That's all from the excess nutrients that are coming from the farmlands and all the pesticides. That water that gets deposited in the Gulf of Mexico, there's no oxygen in it, or very low oxygen in it, and it's getting worse. It's in Louisiana, Texas border, and it's just getting worse and worse. And they're not the only areas that have it now. So it's terrible. We've got a virus going on now, but regardless of that, our water is polluted, and the water treatment is not substantial enough to remove your basic pharmaceuticals and your basic nutrients that are coming out of what people are going into the sewers or into the runoff. If the gut doesn't go directly into the various waterways, the water and wastewater treatment plants need to be upgraded as well.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Let's go to break, and we'll follow up on just a little bit of this, and then we're going to start talking about some fishing, because we really need to talk about the fishing, because the fishing's been pretty darn good. So we're going to be right back with Dr. Mitch Roffer and myself, Jim Ross, after these messages with more Catch a Memory, so don't go away. We appreciate y'all tuning in and Facebooking in and WWBC apping in and FMing and AMing in. And I tell you, there's so many ways that you can get Catch a Memory, and we really appreciate each and every one of you tuning in and listening. Dr. Mitch Roffer is my special guest this morning, and we're talking a little bit about some water quality issues and some different things like that. But we want to let you know this segment of the show is brought to you by Memory Sticks Fishing Rods, and if you're looking for a great stick to get out there and catch your next memory with, stop in at one of the local locations. New Smyrna Outfitters, both Ace locations in Titusville, Sunrise Marine in Port Canaveral, Strike Zone in Melbourne, and Reel 'em in Bait and Tackle down in Sebastian are some places that you can stop. Or you can go to just go straight to the website, memorysticksfishingrods.com, and you can find them there. We're going to go to the phone lines right now. We've got Captain Mike Mann calling in. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you today?
We're doing good, buddy. Are you staying away from the red snapper fiasco at the boat ramp this morning?
I am. I opted to take the weekend off. I'm just like, yeah, I don't need to fish it. I don't need to deal with that.
So, Mike, we kind of started off the show saying that we really feel like this species, and many people feel this way, this species is so mismanaged right now, and it's just an absolute joke as to what's going on with the regulations on this thing. You're a guide like myself. Primarily, we fish in shore, the lagoon waters, near shore waters. We get outside once in a while and do a little red snapper fishing. But have you ever seen another species that was as mismanaged as red snapper?
No, I don't believe I have. I can't understand the whole regulations now. I mean, it's like a 4-day slaughter fest this month, and doesn't matter. And it's right in the middle of a spawn.
Yeah, which makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, and this is 2 years in a row they've done this right in the middle of the spawn. I don't understand that. I don't understand. It's been proven that slot sizes work.
Mm.
Give us a 3-month season so it's not so dangerous, and give us a slot size. Look at what it's done with snook. The snook fishing is incredible. We've got a slot size. We've got a closed season when they're spawning, and it's open when they're not, and it's really worked out. I've seen more snook up here this year than I've probably seen here in the last 15 years combined.
Yeah.
So why don't they?
There are
I can't figure out what it is.
There are definitely other species that have been regulated that you can truly call success stories.
Yeah.
This one I just feel is just I just shake my head. Honestly, I shake my head at it. I just go, why?
Yeah, and it makes it doing a short season like this makes it unsafe. I don't know how many boats went down yesterday. I know of at least 2 that I've heard of that went down because people are rushing. They're going out there in seas that taking boats in seas they should not be taking boats in seas because it's such a short season.
When you see pontoon boats trying to get out to the 21 Fathom Ridge,
yeah.
There's your sign.
Yeah,
there's your sign.
There's a problem there.
Okay, there's your sign.
Yeah.
It just
and that was it. Last year I did it, and I took some video of just going out the inlet and of the reefs, and I just decided this year I'm not going to do it. Just for a safety factor. I don't need to take somebody out to go catch red snapper that bad. I agree completely. And for one fish per person, if we do a slot size, we do a short season. Do a 2-month-long season where it's open, and do a narrow slot size where it may be a 3-inch slot. It has to fall within those 3 inches. Then you could still harvest some. But their answer was let's have something that releases the ones that we keep off season down deep. Because, that seems logical.
Well, I've said it many, many times. I feel like with reef species, it's very difficult to truly know whether or not you had a successful release. You can have a feel-good release. You can say, he was in good shape when I put him back down, or when he swam back down, if you were in shallow enough water and you didn't have to vent the fish and he swam back down. You have a feel-good release. But the second that fish gets down 20 or 30 feet, there's a sandbar shark, there's a bull shark, there's a barracuda. There's something waiting for that fish to swim back down. There's a Goliath grouper. So to put it back in the water and think to yourself, well, that fish is going to make it in the ocean. It's not like releasing a redfish in the lagoon. You're fooling yourself into thinking that fish is actually going to make it, in my opinion. So here's what I would say, that and to take all the pressure off of red snapper, because you catch 10 red snapper for every grouper you catch. You catch 10 red snapper for every triggerfish and sea bass and vermilion snapper you catch. So to take the pressure off of the red snapper fishery, where you're not having these feel-good releases that actually turn into what is classified as a dead discard because it either dies from the barotrauma or gets eaten by something because it's not as healthy and as strong as it should be to be living in that ocean. I feel like everybody on the boat should be able to keep one red snapper. And let's do it all year long if we want to.
Yeah.
Because if you, as a guide, take out a 3-person trip and 3 sardines go down on bottom rigs and 3 red snapper come back up, okay, now you're done bottom fishing. If you keep a red snapper, you can't keep any other bottom species, period. So that immediately makes you change what you're doing, and you go trolling the rest of the day for king mackerel, or you go for dolphin, or you go for sailfish or tuna, or you go do some other kind of fishing which eases the pressure off of the bottom species, and that eases the pressure off of the red snapper. So
most definitely.
To discard 5 or 6 or 8 red snapper to catch one of something else, you just killed 40% of them according to the scientific data that we're looking at. So, let's just say you caught those 10. 4 of the 10 died. The other 6 made it. You didn't put any in the box. What good does that do you or the species?
It does absolutely no good. And with this big closure they've had, the problem with the red snapper is they are an aggressive species. And when they reach a certain size, they become more like the Goliath grouper, where they are feeding on everything on the reef.
Yep, they're an apex predator.
And the reef starts having less and less of the other fish. Yep. And it makes it, it just makes it where that's the one species that takes over the entire reef.
Because you have an imbalance, which is, once again, an unhealthy population.
Yeah, there's got to be some checks and balances in it, and I just don't understand. My big grief too is they did it right in the middle of the spawn 2 years in a row. So I don't understand that at all.
Well, that's when you can harvest the maximum number of red snapper, right?
Yeah,
aggregation.
When you take the 100,000 eggs or 250,000 eggs that are in the belly of every one of those females, and you take them out of the water in the process, and people will say, well, you're doing the same thing if you take them when they're not in season. How about wait until after they spawn and then harvest them? Give them a chance. At least give them a chance, Well, let's stop harping on the red snapper, and let's talk about the redfish and the snook and the tarpon and the trout and all the other cool stuff that you've been catching with your charters this week.
Yeah, tell me about where you're finding all these snook.
There are snook all over the North Mosquito Lagoon. They're around bridges, they're around oysters, they're around mangroves, docks. We've had a lot of snook being caught over the last few months. But I'll tell you, on the nearshore reefs, the big thing was the flounder bite.
Good deal.
Flounder bite has been on fire for about the last 3 weeks on the nearshore reefs. Not fishing the reefs, fishing off of them. But the flounder bite has been incredible. I think we ended up with 15 flounder on Wednesday, 14 on Tuesday, 13 on Monday. Wow. And the smallest one we kept was 17 inches.
Nice.
How are you catching them? Are you using jig or using live bait? What are you doing?
I'm using a 1/4 ounce jig tipped with shrimp. And I'm dropping it down, and we're just hopping it. Now, the downside, and I'm using light tackle. Now, the downside to that is there's also some 30-pound jacks. Occasionally, you get the thumping, and then the line starts screaming. And I put my memory stick 734s to work this week on some 30-pound snapper.
I'll bet, or jacks, you mean?
I mean,
yeah,
we put them to work.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my little secret. I like taking that little jig head. The downside of that, it only works when there's not a really ripping current. If it's a ripping current, you got to kind of cast up current and let it sink down, and it's harder to feel the bite. But what it does, that little jig head bouncing along the bottom, that's where you get the flounder bite, and it's just a tick of a bite. The other big news is the tarpon have gone off this week. We jumped 3 in about 15 minutes on Thursday. Had a young 9-year-old girl who was on all 3 of them.
Nice.
And she learned how to bow, but we were up around some structure, so I'm not going to tell you exactly what structure, but there were ropes that broke us off. We'll give you that. But this has been a crazy I mean, I've seen more tarpon in the last month here than I've seen in a few years at this time.
Mike,
and they're all inside.
Are you seeing shrimp? Are you seeing a good shrimp run or a good crab run? What do you think is bringing all of those tarpon off the beach into the lagoon?
There's been a lot of crabs, and to be honest with you, on the beach, we don't have the bait fish. We're starting to get a few sardines showing up, but we don't have none of the pogies have shown up yet up in our region.
Gotcha.
I know you had some down there, and I've heard some were north of us, but they still haven't really gotten on the beach. So there's been a lot of crabs floating. We've had redfish coming up, big bull reds coming up and slurping the crabs off the top on this last full moon.
How about permit? Have you seen any permit yet this year doing that?
I have not. I know that was the Insider Fish Report Fish of the Week.
Yep.
And I've not seen any yet or heard any reports of them, but the first time I fished the inlet, which is typically where we'll see the permit, is right there at the inlet.
Right.
First time I fished it this week, and this season has been Thursday. I'm still waiting on my trolling motor to get mounted on the boat, so I don't like anchoring at the inlet. I just can't. I'm not as mobile as I'd like to be.
Yeah.
And so I'm waiting on that trolling motor to get mounted. Hopefully today or tomorrow he's going to show up with and mount it for me and run my wiring. But yeah, we have not seen permit. The tarpon on the beach behind the shrimp boats, when you can get them, have been big boys. I have not seen any 80-pounders. They're all buck 50s.
Big fish. Wow.
Big fish. And we're starting to see those bigger fish showing up in the river. Scott Tripp on Wednesday landed a 130-pounder inside the river. So, I mean, we're starting to see the bigger ones showing up there. So it's time to upgrade the tackle a little bit. Yeah. Make sure you've got the right tackle for the fish. Those fish will fight their heart out, and if you don't have the right tackle, you're going to really do some harm to those big fish.
Gotcha, bud. Well, we're up against our break, Mike. How can somebody get a hold of you?
I've got some days open at the end of the month. You can give me a call at area code 386-295-5991. You can go right to my website, fatfishguide.com. You can follow me on Instagram, Captain Mike Mann, and Facebook, Fatfish Guide Service. And, hey, the tarpon bite should continue for the next couple of months. So August is a great time to get out and do some tarpon fishing along the beach or in the river.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks for the call this morning, and good luck on your charters this week. I hope they go as good as they have for you the last week.
Thanks, guys. Get out there and catch a memory.
All right, bud. Hey, gang, Dr. Mitch Roffer, myself, Jim Ross, are going to be right back after these messages. If you want to give us a call, though, 321-632-1000 is our Blakemore Real Magic Studio hotline. So give us a call right here at the WWBC studio in Cocoa. We're going to be right back. Hey, you know what? We're going to do the fishing and boating conditions for today. Really, really good-looking conditions, Mitch. You know, southwest this morning at 5 to 10, switching to southeast at about 10 by this afternoon. Obviously, thunderstorms are going to be part of the picture, but, you know, as long as you see it coming, get off the water, and then you won't have to be considered a casualty like those that don't get off the water that become casualties. 2 feet at 9 seconds right now at the 20, or inside of 20 miles. And that's basically what we've got, because the 4-mile buoy is 81 degrees with 1 foot at 9 seconds. The 20-mile is 83 degrees with 2 foot at 9 seconds. And the 6-mile buoy out of Fort Pierce is 83 degrees and 2 feet at 10 seconds. Current surf temps at Cocoa Beach are about 81 to 82 degrees, and at Fort Pierce they're about the same. Western edge of the Gulf Stream is about 27 nautical miles due east of the port, 21 due east of Sebastian, and 14 due east of Fort Pierce Inlet. And the tides look like this. We've got our next tide. We just went past our low here, so we're coming back towards incoming tide. Got a high at Canaveral, 1:19 p.m., and then a low this evening at 7:26 p.m. Sebastian, we've got a high at 11:11 p.m., and then a low at 7:34 p.m. And then at Fort Pierce, we've got a high at 1:28 p.m. and a low at 7:40 p.m. So those are your daily boating conditions. Once again, be careful out there. It's thunderstorms are nothing to mess with, and you don't have anything on your boat that's going to discharge all of that amount of juice coming at you if you get struck. So just don't be a casualty. Get off the water and be safe.
Yeah, a lot of people now with radar, and if you have the boat with the radar, you can see where these storms are coming. You don't have to lose your whole day. You can avoid them by going away from the storms.
Yeah.
But you have to also wait them out. I mean, some of these storms last for 15, 20 minutes. Some the other night we had one for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be offshore in a thunderstorm where the wind all of a sudden picks up to 40 knots.
One of the things that's really nice about the modern technology that we have access to, Mitch, is, depth sounders and chart plotters are a great thing. But XM Sirius has real-time weather that you can get with the XM Sirius subscription. And for a small boater that can't afford a radar, man. And, once you get out of cell service, your phone no longer works. So if you get outside of cell service and you need to know what the weather is, I highly, highly recommend that XM Sirius weather service. And now they've got fish mapping and all kinds of crazy stuff that goes along with it. So a lot of really good stuff that's available right at the touch of your fingers, and you don't have to worry about cell reception to be able to pick it up because it's all satellite driven.
Yeah, the technology is increasing every 6 months. There's something new out there, and they're refining it.
I'll tell you what I'd like to see. When you're going offshore, really, guys that go offshore a long way, 60, 80, 100 miles, especially the guys tuna fishing, pretty much everybody's got a satellite phone. Satellite phones are expensive, but you know what? It's a necessary thing that if you happen to get out there and you need to be able to contact somebody, there you go. So my OnStar in my GMC truck has been in place since 2006. With that, I can get a Sirius XM radio, and with the OnStar setup through GMC and Chevy, you have satellite phone capabilities, and it costs about 30 cents a minute. I don't understand why we haven't been able to implement that into our GPS sounders, depth sounders, things of that nature yet, because you would think the technology's already there. They're putting them on cars and trucks every single day. Because I used mine. Now I've recently sold that vehicle, but I used mine if I was out hunting or somewhere out in the woods where I didn't have cell reception. I just used the phone in my truck, and that's been in place for well over a decade. Being a 2006 model. I'm kind of surprised at how slow that's been to integrate into the marine market, where, in my opinion, it's desperately needed. That form of communication, that satellite link, to be able to communicate with somebody if you're out of physical cell phone range. And it doesn't have to be for a guy who's going offshore. How many times have you fished around Flamingo and the backwaters down there where you didn't have cell service? Heck, half the time when I'm in Haulover Canal between the Mosquito Lagoon and the Indian River, my cell phone doesn't work.
Agreed.
So I think that, that to me would be, for a small boater in particular, that would be a huge benefit. And it couldn't be that hard. Your GPS now has the capability to Bluetooth. So, and why can't you just dial up a phone on the screen, dial in a number, or hit an emergency button or whatever, and be able to, instantly get in contact with somebody that can potentially help you? That to me, or just tell somebody, hey, the bite's on, and we're going to be 2 hours late because we're not coming back in at 5 o'clock when we said we were going to. We're going to come back at 7 o'clock tonight.
I remember when I was working with some of the satellite communication companies when I was with Roffs, that they look at it. There's two issues. One's bandwidth, and how much bandwidth there is, and then which is the important market. And to them, the first important market was the recreation people who drive around the country in the RVs.
Right.
So if there's a choice about where you're going to develop something, it was always first developed for the RV community before they did the offshore anglers. So maybe as bandwidth becomes available as they launch these trillion satellites all the time, it seems like every other week that SpaceX
50
is
more going up.
today at 10:43, I think. But it may be an opportunity for them to get in that market. Satellite phones the prices are really coming down a lot less than people think. And if you're going to risk your life by going off 50 miles or 100 miles, you need to have one of those. It's not an option to me.
No.
And you can, if you don't go off that often, you can rent one for the weekend. You can rent them from the week. There are plenty of places in the port that does it. So,
and they could even have a plan. Everybody's got a plan for you to pay them monthly. They could even have a plan where you could have the option for an extra $5 that, if you're me as a flats guy, okay, well, I'm fishing the beach for tarpon. Well, the bite's not on, but I can listen to the VHF radio and I hear that at 22 miles, the dolphin bite's going off right now. I mean, they're on fire. There's a weed line out there. The fish are jumping in the boat. And if I'm at 22 miles, I don't have cell phone reception. I simply push the button on my GPS to call OnStar or to call whatever the service potentially is, the XM satellite phone service, and push the button and say, hey, I want to invoke my 5 minutes of satellite right now.
Yeah, I think they have those plans.
And you can be running offshore knowing that, hey, if something were to happen, now I have the potential to get in touch with somebody to let them know something's gone wrong. Or at least it's a better opportunity to do that than what you would without it. And it would be something where you could come back and say, hey, I didn't use my 5 minutes. I want to put them back into my storage mode. And it's just a simple push of a button. I mean, when you touch and call, in the case of OnStar, you immediately get somebody on the line.
Right.
And within seconds, and you can explain to them what it is that you need, or they can help you right there. So I would think that in today's technology, it would be something that could be easily turned on and off, and or it could even be a toggle switch that, like you toggle a switch on your phone to turn something on or turn something off. You could even have the service and just toggle it on when you're in need of it, toggle it back off when you're not.
I know they have different systems now where you can just text people. But I would think if they have a Fort Lauderdale boat show in the fall, that would be a great place, because I know you're going to be going down to that to go see the people on the first day or so in the electronics tent and give them that idea and find out what the options are. Maybe they're doing it and we don't even know about it yet.
That's a possibility as well. Well, guys and gals, we'd love to hear from you. 321-632-1000 is our Blake Moore Real Magic Studios call-in hotline. Myself, Jim Ross, and, of course, the one and only Dr. Mitch Roffer is in this morning. And we got a whole lot more show coming, so don't go away. We're going to be right back. Hey, guys and gals, welcome back. This segment of the show is brought to you by the one and only Rapala Brands. And, of course, we're going to talk about Captain Justin's Rapala pick of the week. He's out on the water right now. But I tell you what, he might have a chance to call in right after Lisa. So let's go to the phones. We'll do the Rapala brand lure of the week right after we get off the phone with Lisa. Good morning, Lisa.
Well, good morning, Cap Jim. How are you guys?
We're doing good this morning. I have Dr. Mitch Roffer in with me this morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Dr. Mitch.
Hey.
How are you?
Great. How about yourself?
I'm fantastic. I'm so excited. Our competition opened July the 1st, and we have had nearly 5,000 anglers participating with us in the open of the competition. You can still register to participate. There's nearly $500,000 in prizes available to anglers that are competing in the STAR competition. And Jim, I want to remind everyone, it's not just about that iHeartRadio tag redfish, although it is our signature division, but every single saltwater species fish that you catch over the summer can be entered in STAR with your shot at some amazing prizes.
Even guys like myself that catch a lot of catfish and puffers, we have a category. So Lisa even thinks of guys like me.
Well, I want to encourage people to go out fishing, and sometimes there are days when you're just not going to catch that sport fish. So I wanted to make sure that if you caught a catfish, a puffer, a shark, or something like that, you had the opportunity to enter it and still win some great prizes. So Power Pole, with myself, came up with the Power Pole Conservation Division. And what that does is all of the fish that you catch and you submit, we're able to utilize the information and the data that we gather from those species in order to help other organizations with their research and determining, where these specific species are. And I bet it helps the lure companies, because if they know where puffer fish are, they're going to say that's great fishing there, and then you guys are going to have to buy more lures from them,
Mark Nichols from DOA, I've known Mark for close to 30 years now, and he's only half joking when he says that he takes some of the money from the sales of his product and puts it back into the puffer restocking program.
Well, I tell you, they definitely do damage to a lot of baits. Not Chirapolas, though. Not Chirapolas.
No, they're pretty good on them.
I do want to let you know that over the 4th of July weekend, we had some fireworks of our own here in Star. We had 2 anglers achieve stardom. And when I say stardom, I mean they caught an iHeartRadio tagged redfish, and they were not registered in the competition. So that is truly stardom.
Dumb, yeah.
I love it.
We had an angler catch an iHeartRadio tagged redfish in North Tampa. That fish was released. He is now registered in the competition. We also had a fish caught in Sarasota County in Sarasota Bay, and that gentleman was fishing with a captain. The captain did know about the Star competition, although his client did not. His client was from Georgia. They caught the iHeartRadio tagged redfish and then released it. Both fish were released with tag intact. So we still have 167 iHeartRadio tagged redfish swimming in the waters for someone to recapture.
167 swimming around this state. So basically, if you throw a shrimp, a cut piece of bait, a paddle tail jig, a topwater plug, a gold spoon, anywhere in state waters, you've got the potential to win a really, really great prize. And if you don't, here's your worst case scenario, Lisa. I always tell people this. Here's your worst case scenario, that you sign up for the Star tournament and you go fishing 2-3 times during the tournament and you don't catch anything. You can still be a winner, because even if you don't catch a fish, there's still an opportunity for you to win by picking up a 5-gallon bucket full of trash and putting that into the trash division, and now you can be a winner. Even if you can't fish, you can still win. This tournament it's the best tournament I've ever seen in my life.
Well, thank you, Jim. We tried to design the competition to allow everyone of any skill level, of any desire, the general public, to be able to participate in the competition, have fun, go out, catch fish, pick up trash, and still win something. But, even if you participate in the competition and you are not drawn for a prize, you're still a winner, because your membership in CCA Florida allows us the ability to go out and do the work that we do, which is conserving and preserving our marine resources. It has allowed us in the last 10 years to rally up with our partners nearly $4.8 million in brick and mortar projects, hardcore projects that go back into habitat. And that's just in Florida. So $4.8 million has gone back into the local waters of Florida in nearshore and offshore reefs, mangrove replantings, oyster bed renourishment, clam restoration in the Mosquito Lagoon, clam restoration in Sarasota Bay, seagrass plantings, all types of different projects.
Fish restocking.
Yes.
The whole West Coast has been restocked. You know what? Congratulations. CCA is the leading voice for us as recreational anglers. Congratulations to all of those recreational anglers out there that have taken the time to become CCA members, because this is what can be achieved when we all band together for a good cause. And it just, to me, everything that I see as a CCA, personally a CCA life member, everything that I see going on, I appreciate, because I can't do it myself. Mitch can't do it himself. Lisa, you can't do it yourself. But by banding together, we as recreational anglers can achieve a lot. And like you just said, $4.8 million worth of projects that have gone back in to enhancing our love of the outdoors. I mean, where else are you going to find that from a single person? Nobody can do that. That's what's great about CCA.
News. We are working very closely with Duke Mariculture Center to develop, and we're working on all the equipment now, and we'll be restocking the east coast of Florida with redfish. So
yep.
We're working on that now. Hope to have all of the equipment in place so that we can get breeder redfish from the east coast, start rearing and releasing east coast fish as well. We don't want to leave you guys out. We love the east coast. We want to make sure that we work equally as hard on the east coast as the west coast. So just know that we are working towards being all over the state, not just on the west coast.
Well, Brian Gorski and I talked this week, and he has put me in charge of collecting a group of anglers to catch the broodstock redfish that we're going to use to reseed the east coast of Florida with. So I really took that as a great compliment from you guys at CCA, and we are going to do a heck of a job getting redfish back in the Mosquito Lagoon, Indian rivers, but not just there, all the way up and down the east coast. This is going to be a fantastic thing. So we're gonna put a team together that's going to be some top quality anglers, and we're going to get this done.
Well, we so appreciate all that you do for us, Jim. We want your East Coast anglers, and I try to remind everyone with STAR and CCA in general, we're not just about inshore species. STAR has an offshore open divisions of kingfish, grouper, and dolphin, mahi-mahi. So we do have that. We also have tarpon. Your tarpon fishing has been amazing. The Hummingbird Tarpon division, we have a $10,000 prize package. All you have to do, you don't have to land that tarpon. I just have to see that you've leadered the fish and have our official measuring device in the photo. Do not remove the fish from the water, no matter the size of the tarpon. Submit it, and we're going to do a random drawing. Someone's going to win $10,000 from Hummingbird, Minn Kota, and all of our other sponsors. So please, if you're out there fishing, it does not make sense. Don't be stardom.
Don't be stardom, yeah.
Don't achieve stardom
yep.
by not registering. Any fish you catch can be entered in the competition.
Well, how can somebody get involved, Lisa?
So they can go to our website at ccaflstar.com and select the register tab, and they can get registered, or they can call us at 844-387-7827, and we will register you right over the phone.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the call, Lisa, and thank you for all that you do and all that CCA does for us recreational anglers throughout the state of Florida.
Well, we sure appreciate it, and if anyone is out at the Central Florida Shootout and they come to the weigh-in, they will see us there, and we are reviving and have big oxygen tanks out there to revive those redfish and then get them back into the waters there at the boat launch, at the weigh-in. So please come on out, and the Central Florida Shootout supports Strike Zone, and those guys, they're great, and they are a huge supporter of CCA. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Lisa. Take care and have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too, Jim.
Hey, gang, just wanted to let you know we got the Facebook Live. His feed is going right now. Captain Russ Glenn is watching. Ryan Norman is watching. James Robert, good morning to you all. Jack Little, haven't seen Jack in quite some time. Even Danny Gomez calling in from somewhere way up north by the Chesapeake.
Wow.
Up in Virginia area is checking us out this morning. Mark Thomason, Tim Tolbert. Tell you what, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and tell all your friends that you can see us right here. Even Mike Delatorre is called in, or is watching in this morning. So one of Coco's finest is got online with us this morning. Thank you guys for tuning in. We are going to take a break, and when we come back, Mitch Roffer and myself are going to be right back with a whole another hour of grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and enjoy. We appreciate it. Dr. Mitch Roffer has joined me, Captain Jim Ross, in the studio this morning. We're going to let you know that this segment of the show is brought to you by Blue Points Marina, and then we're going right to the phone lines because Captain Justin Ross is on the line right now. Sounds like you've gotten we've been on a 2.5-minute break, and he's had like 3 strikes on the topwater plug already.
I hear it.
So what's going on out there this morning? Sounds like a good bite.
Yeah, we're having a good little bite here. We literally just missed the stuff that was probably 25 or 27 inches. He came up, busted the top water. We came tight on him, and he jumped and spit it.
Oh, man.
So we're
that's a good snook, though. That's a good snook.
Yeah, he was good size. He made a big splash when he hit that thing. Trust me.
So what's the magic lure that's working for you this morning?
So the Walk the Dog Rapala, the skitter walk, and it is in the redfish pattern that is doing the best.
Gotcha.
We're also throwing a sub walk, the all white sub walk, but it's not seeming to get as much love as that topwater is. But it's still pretty cloudy. It's still overcast, so I think as visibility changes, that may flip.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that topwater bite's going good this morning, though.
Really, for this time of year, too.
Yeah.
Well, what is your captain's pick of the week telling us?
So, pick of the week this week is the VMC stand-up shaky head jig head. And typically, a lot of bass guys use it for their worms, right?
Right.
They use it for stick baits and their worms and stuff like that. And what it does is it stands your lure up at about a 45-degree angle, and it doesn't let it fall down into the grass, so it's easier for those fish to find. But we have actually been using them with shrimp, whatever shrimp imitation you want to use, soft plastic, and it actually stands your shrimp up like it'll do a worm, and that makes it easier for the redfish and other things to come pin it down and jump all over it too. Gotcha.
Sticks it up out of that calorpa or out of that seagrass so that they can find it.
Exactly. Especially if you put some Procure on it or something like that, some sort of scent. Then it makes it that much easier for them to find it.
Gotcha. So the VMC stand-up shaky head jig looks like it comes in a 1/8, 3/16, and a quarter. Of course, we're typically throwing the 1/8 here because it's so shallow. But I've actually used this same jig head up in the Jacksonville area fishing tournaments up there of Jacksonville, Fernandina, around the oyster bars.
Yeah.
And it really works there because it stands. You make a mud puff, and then you pop the jig, and it falls back down and makes another puff. You pop it again, and makes another puff. And sounds like he's got some action going on. I can hear it in the background there.
We just pulled up a nice little ladyfish.
There you go.
You got action. That's good. That's great.
Yep. And you said you were fishing the Banana River this morning or the Indian River?
We're in the Banana River.
Banana this morning.
In the Thousand Islands.
Gotcha. Well, it's been a long time since that place has been any good, so it sounds like it's starting to come back. Those water quality issues that we've been talking about have been being addressed, and we're starting to see, places like the Thousand Islands that are starting to show promise again. So you've been on the phone with us between the break and live. You've been on the phone with us for a little over 6 minutes right now, and you've had a snook on, a ladyfish on, and you said you had 2 other strikes?
Yeah. I couldn't tell quite what it was. It was either a big trout or a little tarpon. I didn't get a good look at it, but he came up and swung, and he hit it hard, but he just never got it. We never came tight with the problem.
Gotcha.
So, and then I saw it right where the bait got struck. About 2 minutes later, I saw a little tarpon roll. So I have a feeling that that's what it was.
Yeah. Well, we got. I was looking at some of the comments online, and Danny Gomez says he likes the VMC shaky head. He says it's incredible for worming, and he throws it all the time.
Yeah, I've been using it for when I go bass fishing, in the lakes around town, and it works really well.
So freshwater, saltwater, doesn't matter. VMC jigs working. Get out there and get you some of those stand-up shaky heads, huh?
Exactly.
Well, buddy, if somebody wants to jump on board, have you got? I think you've got 2 days open this week or something, and you're booked the rest of the week.
Yeah, either 2 or 1. I can't remember.
What? How does somebody get a hold of you so they can jump on board and go catch some fish with you?
They can either go online to finelinefishingcharters.com. Sorry if you can't hear me very well. I'm Poland. Got you on speaker. Or they can give me a call at 321-505-8217.
Gotcha. Captain Justin Ross doing the job this morning, making me proud.
There you go.
Thanks, buddy. Catch him up and have a great day out there.
Will do. Talk to y'all later.
Alrighty. Bye-bye now.
I haven't fished that area in a couple of years, because that's right by the cocoa water treatment and all the muck problems they've had up there.
Well, they've been dredging those canals, and the water in that part of the lagoon has actually really looked good for most of this year. It's starting to turn now that we've had all of the runoff from the rain and the fertilizer and the pesticides and everything is all getting in the lagoon. But the lagoon as a whole in the last month has you see those signs, especially the Indian River side has been really bad with the brown algae blooms.
The visibility has increased. It's for here we are in July. Normally you can't see bottom anywhere.
Right. For
but
the
I know
last 6 or 7 years, you haven't been able to see bottom.
I know in Melbourne shores you can see bottom maybe a couple feet.
Yeah.
And until it rains, and then it clears up a whole lot faster this year. And they have a lot of dredge programs going on. They have a lot of septic to sewer programs going on. The county does. The monitoring is continuing, so the work continues. It's been a short time, and the tax is going to suffer this year. I don't know how much money is going to be able to go to that program next year because it is the county sales tax, because the sales are going down, obviously, because of the virus. But that program is doing a really heck of a good job, and if people are really interested in finding out exactly what's going on, they have the Citizens Committee that meets all the time and once a month, and then there's going to be one on Zoom just coming up soon. And you can get on the mailing list and participate as a citizen and listen in and put in your comments. So there's no reason why you can't get involved in at least knowing what's going on and then adding your 2 cents where you think that they need to make changes.
So I've got a question, Mitch. We talked earlier in the show about water quality issues worldwide, and you said places like India, there are places in Africa where they have no sewage systems, they have no plumbing at all, and some of these places are really bad. But we also have places, like you said, like Flint, Michigan, like Satellite Beach and Indian Harbor Beach, that we're finding that there are serious water quality issues. And Dr. Paul, our producer, actually said that he got a notice from the city of Indian Harbor, or the utilities for Indian Harbor, saying that they were changing his water and basically turning it into non-potable water. I mean, how the heck? He says his house smells like a latrine. How in the heck are we doing this at this day and age? How is this happening?
Well, I've gone to the county commissioners and suggested that we put out a bond and really put in the amount of money we need to do to enhance, to restore our water treatment and get our water coming down our pipes to be really good, high-quality water. And they refuse to spend the money. They think they can just nickel and dime it and patch it up and improve our situation. It's only going to get worse. As more and more people move into our county, as the population grows, the water situation, our drinking water, never mind our sewer water, that constantly the sewer pipes keep breaking up and going into the lagoon, and you hear not as much this summer as you had in the past, but summer's early, 5,000 gallons here, 100,000 gallons there.
500,000.
We need to spend the money. I mean, I'm a taxpayer. Yeah. I'd like them to use our money to do something and fix something for not just today, for the next 10 or 20 years.
So here's something that I posed. I had Commissioner Brian Lober on the show about a year ago. And here's something that I posed to him. I said, look, why can't, our utilities bills have not gone up in years. We're basically at the same rate that we were in like 2013. So it's been 6-7 years or so. We haven't had an increase. Look at the amount of growth that this county has sustained in that amount of time. Okay? So we're still relying on old equipment to take the burden on of all of these additional people and expecting it to work and not maintaining it properly. What if each and every one of us paid $5 more per month? Every apartment, every condo, every homeowner, everybody pays $5 more a month, and that money is specifically earmarked for rebuilding or building an entirely new treatment system in the hot spots, in the satellite beaches, in the Indian Harbor beaches, in the Titusville areas that consistently, historically, have breach after breach after breach of their sewer system that gets bypassed and dumped directly into our lagoon waters. Why can't we do something like that? And he was very reluctant to try to increase everyone's utility bill $5 a month. And I said, you know what? I understand that there are people that are lower income in this area, but would they rather have clean drinking water, or would they rather smoke that pack of cigarettes?
It's their health.
Right.
Pay me now or pay me later. You're going to end up in the hospital with the unclean water. I mean, people are buying bottled water because they don't want to drink what's coming out of their faucet. We have a reverse osmosis system at our house. So
that's what I have.
That cleans the water. In fact, I think anyone in the county should have that. So it's political will. These commissioners just don't want to raise anything. It floors me. I go to commission meetings and I say, why don't you just raise utilities?
Yeah.
And if there are people in the county that can't afford an extra $5 a month who own the house, which I find hard to believe, then you can let those people not pay it. But, for the utility bill that hasn't changed, what about these new people coming into the county, all these new developments in Vieira? Let them pay the additional amount. Put a surcharge on them for their new sewer facilities that they're requiring. I mean, you go to Vieira, that place is growing like mushrooms after a rain. It's just amazing.
Yeah. It is astounding the way that this county is growing.
You got to spend the money to fix the infrastructure. It just doesn't get better by itself.
Right. So before we go to break, I want to ask you a question, and we'll come back after the break and get the answer. If you were going to do one thing for this area or even this country, if you could change one thing that directly correlates to water quality issues, pollution, what one thing would it be that Dr. Mitch Roffer would recommend that we change? And we're going to be right back after these messages, so don't go away. The guys at Anytime No Bite, and it's, of course, by Four Rings Productions Protection, but Anytime No Bite, you guys and gals have asked over and over and over again. Amazon is where you find it. It's called Anytime No Bite. It keeps the no-see-ums off of you. It keeps the mosquitoes off of you. It even keeps the flies. I even found it's useful for chiggers, for those of us that get out in the woods on a regular basis and tromp around looking for places to find deer and pigs and things like that, turkeys. It's a great product. So if you're not physically hunting, but you're just out there scouting, it's a great product to have on because it keeps a lot of things off of you. So check out that Anytime No Bite. You guys and gals are going to be impressed with it. Also, this segment of the show, we have to do our Starbright Cleaning Solutions segment. And one of the things that we don't really think about a whole lot is just a good general purpose lubricant for our zippers. We have zippers on our isinglass on our boat. We have zippers on some of our soft-sided tackle bags. We have zippers on our rain jackets and things of that nature. And Starbright makes a product that's a zipper lube that keeps those things from freezing up. So check out the Starbright zipper lube, and you guys and gals are going to be a lot less frustrated the next time you go to zip up that rain jacket when you're trying to run through that rain squall and that zipper is stuck, it won't move.
Yeah, if you haven't used the garment in quite a while, you leave it in your garage, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's not working. What's this white stuff on it?
Or you want to get into
salt.
that. You want to get into that tackle box and you can't get it out. So check out that product from Starbright. So Dr. Mitch Roffer's in with me this morning. We appreciate you guys and gals for tuning back in, and those of you on Facebook, thanks for joining in as well. We got a lot of great guys online, great guys and gals this morning online. We appreciate you tuning in via the Facebook live feed. So the question was, Dr. Mitch, you being, one of, in my opinion, one of the most respected and knowledgeable people that I know when it comes to water quality worldwide. And I'm very fortunate to be able to have you as a friend and a resource, in that respect. What is the one thing that if you could change it in the United States that would immediately improve the quality of our fresh water, of our salt water? What one thing would it be that you would say is a must do for us? Must do.
Well, if I didn't want to get burned out of my house, I would say ban all lawns, green lawns. Just get rid of them and let the land go native. But that being said, which is, I'd probably get run over as soon as I picked up my mail on the street. I would ban the use of fertilizer. I think there's enough natural fertilizer in the water that we have, whether you're on a septic or city water. Lightning provides most of the nitrogen that we have anyway. In most places, you get lightning. It's in the air. The air is still loads of nitrogen. So the nitrogen, all the fertilizer that people are putting on, spreading on their lawns, most of that is going into the rivers and streams and ending up in our lakes and in our rivers. So that's really what's really killing it. So
it's wasteful.
It's very wasteful. You'd have to selectively put it on there, spraying it. It doesn't need it. We're not living in Ireland that has natural green grass, or Scotland that those climates make for beautiful green grass. We're in Florida or anywhere else in the country. You don't need that luxurious grass that you see on the TVs or the kings and the queens have. It's beyond that. It's going into the water, and it's creating algae blooms, and the algae blooms are toxic, putting out toxins. So one adds to the next. And, I have a whole shopping list of things. The country needs to redo their water and wastewater treatment. When people flush down their unused medicines down the toilet, if you're taking antibiotics, that ends in the toilet. The water treatment plants doesn't remove pharmaceuticals. It doesn't remove pesticides that you spray on your house plants, or you're also spraying on your lawns and your shrubs.
Yeah.
That's going right down into the water. The water and wastewater treatment just puts that in the water. I mean, I know people who are doing research in the Keys, the Florida Keys, and they're finding all sorts of chemicals in the flesh of the fish down there. I mean, if you want to take an antihistamine, don't bother to go to the drugstore anymore in the Keys. Just have a snapper. You just eat a snapper
just
from
go
the
eat
reef.
A yellowtail snapper.
Yeah, if you want Xanax, don't bother to buy it. Just go eat a fish. I mean, that's how bad it's become.
Wow.
In terms of hormones, with birth control pills, there are fish that are reversing their sexes. So you have males that become females, or females become males, or some fish are having both sex. And that's just because of all the hormones in the water that's going in there. And nothing has been done dramatically to increase or improve our water treatment, basically, since the Eisenhower administration. Those of you who are not old enough, that's before Nixon. So that goes back 50 years or more. It's more than 50 years. So 60 years. And it's just, we haven't spent the money again. Spending the money to upgrade these systems because our population is not getting smaller.
No.
So our water quality has to improve. We were talking to the CCA before about restocking. 10 years ago, I would say, there's no need to restock redfish on the East Coast. No. We have all the redfish we could possibly want, all sizes. It was great. then we had the freeze, and then the algae blooms, and now, heck, catching a redfish is like what used to be catching a snook. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Snook has managed to survive, I don't know how, by going in the mangroves and feeding off the mangroves. But all these creatures need seagrasses. And the seagrass, I was going to ask that report if you saw any seagrasses in the Thousand Islands Banana River. I mean, places that I go in the kayak, and whenever I ask people, there's no seagrass that I can find anymore.
There's a lot of calorpa out there right now, which is better as far as a ground covering than nothing, because at least it's keeping the sediment from being stirred up as easily. But the actual seagrasses are still struggling to try to come back, even in areas like that are protected, like the interior islands of the Thousand Island area. One thing that's interesting that you may not know about, I didn't find out about it until the day it was happening, was that Dan Kolodny and others with the National Estuaries Program, which Dwayne DeFries is a good friend of ours. Dan Kolodny works for them as well, and Dan was actually out they're actually planting seagrass in the Thousand Island area, and then putting manatee excluder devices over the top of those seagrass plugs, and pinning those manatee excluder devices to the ground, so the manatees couldn't get to the seagrass plugs and then pull them out of the ground and eat them.
I'm on the Science and Technology Education Committee for the IRL Council with Dwayne and Dan, and that's a very important program. Putting in seagrasses back in, have to plug it in. But as you said, manatees. We all love manatees.
Yeah,
they're great. But if you would plant the seagrass and then leave it open without the manatee exclusion, they'd be gone in a day. Yeah. I know people who have tried experimenting in Sebastian, and they said the only way they can keep seagrasses growing is by putting a fence around to keep the manatees out of it.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're going to be able to get seagrasses back in and manage the manatee community in our county when the water's clean enough to really do this on a massive system. Right now, the water, the turbidity is way too high in most of the areas. The sunlight's not hitting the bottom, so seagrasses couldn't survive. I'm not a big supporter of putting seagrasses in where the sunlight's not going to go. You're just wasting your time.
Right.
Same with the oysters and the clams. If the water quality isn't clean enough to support them, don't waste your time in putting them in there. They're going to die and create more problems.
Yeah.
You can add nutrients back into the system.
You're adding nutrients that we already have an overload and overabundance of, yes.
But those programs seem to be working. I give my hands off to the zoo and other people who are doing it properly. They've experimented, and apparently in some areas the clams and the oysters are doing their job. They're reproducing, and they're pumping as they pump and cleaning anywhere from 20 to 30 gallons a day as they get mature. That's great. So, the seagrass, working with the IRL Council is really good. They're doing a lot of different programs with Dwayne DeFries and Dan and those guys. I mean, monitoring is one of the things that hasn't been done consistently and integrated in the county or the several counties that the Indian River Lagoons is just plain old monitoring, measuring water temperature, measuring the salinity, the pH, and all the oxygen and the chlorophyll in it. This way you know if there's a problem area. Right away, you go, wow, this is a problem area. Let's do something about it.
Yeah.
Is there something that's all of a sudden happened? Do we have sudden leaking septic tanks, or is there a main that's breaking and leaking that's a lateral that's going into the lagoon that we weren't aware of? So that monitoring, it may not be sexy, having those meters in the water and people checking it, but that's critical. They're doing other things related to oysters and seabed and mangrove planting. Plans to restore the lagoon. I mean, people think, oh, they're writing another report. Well, writing those reports are critical because when you apply for money from the National Estuarine Program in Washington, that you need to be able to document what's happening here in a scientific manner so they realize that you have real science going on, and then they can give you funding. Yeah. So the National Estuarine Program, which the Indian River Lagoon Council is part of now, it took, I think, 1 or 2 years to get accepted by that program. It's a great medal for them to wear, is that they got awarded, as part of the National Estuarine Program. Now they can get bigger funds to do more things in the lagoon. I mean, there's a whole list of things. And Indian River Lagoon Council with Dwayne, I don't know how he does it. You're dealing with, it's bad enough to deal with one county. He's dealing with 5 counties. And the politics involved, that everyone in the council is trying to get something done. So it's great. So when you brought that up, that's really good. They're doing a lot of good things in the county.
They really are. Well, when we come back from this next break, we're going to talk about Mitch and his fishing endeavors and all of the other stuff that we need to talk about in the last 30 minutes of the show. We're going to try and squeeze in. I'm going to run grab a shoehorn real quick. We're going to be right back with more Catch a Memory, and you guys and gals don't go away. Long-term coolers. They've even got coolers that are big enough you can almost sleep in them. So those of you guys and gals that are going offshore and catching really, really big offshore fish, or those of you that are looking for a good place to put a deer or two or a hog or two in when you go on your hunting trips, check out ingocoolers.com. You're going to be impressed with the offerings that they have.
Unfortunately, we're in hurricane season, so you may need those coolers to put ice in to get ready. You know, every time one of these come up, what's the first thing you do is you get ice. So all the food in your refrigerator when the power goes out, that's where you need to put your food. So you need ice in those coolers.
That is the truth. So we haven't talked a lot about what you've been doing with a fishing rod lately. So I'm kind of interested to find out, because you live right on the beach. What's been going on outside of your back door? I mean, is there any activity going on? Have you been able to catch any fish lately?
It's been very, very slow on the beach. We keep hearing stories, and I was down in Vero, and there was a lot of bait a few weeks ago, and tarpon were coming in. The snook, I guess 5 days ago, the snook went off the wall down in Vero, down by the piers. I had a friend, Captain Brendan Burke, call me and says, "This is the best snook fishing off the beach I have ever seen." He said he couldn't. It was one after another after another. So,
wow.
Unfortunately, I couldn't go down there, but that day. But we're waiting for those fish to come up to Melbourne, and they're staying offshore. You can see the birds working outside of casting from the beach. I don't care what kind of casting. I'm tempted to get this attachment for my drone so I could take some live bait and put it offshore. But you see tarpon jumping offshore, half a mile. You see the birds constantly diving, pelicans and terns, and they're just not close enough to the beach. But the fishing on the beach has been very slow, an occasional snook. We're calling up and down. I talk to you.
What do you think is keeping the fish so far off of the beach right now?
I don't know, but people keep reminding me of the beach restoration, that the water's too turbid and they're staying off. I know that they don't have beach restoration down in Vero, but they have a natural reef there closer to the shore too. Satellite Beach, they have better bottom, so it might be just better bottom or lack of restoration. It comes when the winds come, the water clears up after 3 or 4 days. But
yeah.
We haven't had enough, even though it's been west wind and it's really been really flat calm. The ocean has been a lake basically for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, when sea breeze comes up, it picks up. During the thunderstorms, it breezes up. So my guess is it's the turbidity that's in the lower part of our county that's keeping the fish from coming in. I'm hoping that's not true, that the bait fish just are still far south and it's late this year, and hopefully the heat will cause them to move north.
So I'm going to come back to the beach renourishment and bait fish situation right after this, because we've got somebody on the line that we need to talk to right now. We got Captain Blair Wiggins calling in. Good morning, Blair.
Good morning, guys. What's happening up there?
We're just talking fishing and water quality and all of the great projects that are going on to help this lagoon system get better and better every day. And of course, you're spearheading that clam restoration project for the IRL. That's a fantastic thing. But the other day, I didn't get a chance to talk to you about that, but the other day you put out a video about picking up crown conchs. And a 5-gallon bucket of crown conchs came from whatever little piece of area that you were in. We were just in the Indian River Lagoon.
It was 5.5. It was 5.5 gallons of it, and there was a ton of them there where we put the clams out behind river rocks. And I worked underneath basically one small part of the net, and around the net we picked them up off the top of the nets, and they're actually digging down and going underneath the nets and getting into the clam bed.
Trying to get at those clams, huh?
Trying to get at those clams. I just tell me there wasn't many clams around there anywhere that were living, because as soon as we put them out, it was like a snail crawl invasion, but they're there.
Yeah, it's a free-for-all. It's like putting a blade of grass out in a manatee patch.
Yeah, but we can eat these little dudes, and they're pretty darn tasty.
Well, that's the thing I was going to ask is, okay, so you collected a 5-gallon bucket of them. I saw you hooking up, your propane burner. How did you go about preparing them? I've had a lot of people ask me, how do you prepare them? How did you go about preparing them? And then, obviously, what was the result? It sounds like they were pretty tasty.
Yep, they were very good. We did it. We did a 2-minute boil on them, basically, just to kill them and make them easier to come out of the shell. And I got some metal shish kebab skewers, and you're able to roll the meat out really, really easy. I mean, it's I got a whole big bag of bait, but I'm going to try the snapper season. But they roll out, and the foot comes off of them, and you cut the little hard part off, which is what they crawl around on, their foot basically, and then the rest of them is just like a little tiny conch. You pull the guts off, and you get a nice little bite of meat, and you cut it up 2 or 3 times, and we made an etouffee out of them, and it was absolutely incredible, dude. I mean,
nice.
If I would have known as a kid those things were so good to eat, we'd have been able to keep the population down, no doubt.
Gotcha. No
doubt.
I was shocked at how many you were able to collect just in that one little area.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was just, you put the food out there, and I guess they smelled the clams, and were able to figure out where they were. And I mean, they were all over there. The deeper water clams, where we put them out in deeper water, didn't have as many on them, but the clam beds that were just over knee deep were getting invaded pretty good. But we didn't do a count how many we got, but it was 5.5 gallon bucketfuls.
We call it, when I was a kid, we used to call those things sandbar sand spurs. Because when you're running up and down the sandbar on one of the little islands or something, you always stepped on one. Of course, they're so pleasant to step on. But it's great to
find. If anybody that likes conch, man, that's some of the best conch. It's little tiny bites, but heck, the more you eat, the better you're doing for the environment out there, especially for our clam beds.
Yeah,
those things are just devastating.
Now, is there any limit on the number of crown conchs that you can take?
Not from what I was told by the biologist. There's no limit, and you can no size limit, no amount limit. You can get as many as you want. And with what I saw out there, they're like, I don't want to compare them to the passenger pigeon, but there's thousands of them out there, and thousands. I worked one area, probably a 10 by 15 area, and it was no problem filling up a 2.5 or filling up that 5.5 gallon bucket.
Wow. So something else.
They make great bait. You want some really good sheephead bait. They're really good. They stay on the hook better than a clam. Actually, my son Drayden, he caught his biggest sheephead off of one of those things. It was 32 inches long. It was a big.
Holy cow! That's a giant
fish.
It was a giant sheephead.
We were actually black drum fishing, and all of a sudden he hooked this thing, and it started zipping across the flats. I'm like, that's a weird black drum. It came up and flashed, and I saw his body. I was like, that's a funny looking black drum to be fighting like that, And
yeah,
he got it up, and that was a sheephead, and I was just like, oh my god. That was quite a few years ago, but yeah, they make excellent bait.
Well, I really appreciate you following up with us on that, and I'm like I took the video that you had made while you were collecting them and shared it to our Facebook page. It would be really cool to see the etouffee part videoed so that we could share that part too.
Oh, it's coming. We're definitely going to, and just as a little note, and I'm plagued with this, unfortunately. I get gout a lot, and it triggered a gout attack for me. So if you do have gout, get your Allogeronol out.
Yeah.
But shellfish does that to me in general. But yeah, it was delicious. It was worth the pain. Put it that way.
How the clams doing?
Clams are doing good. The mortality rate isn't that great right now with all all the conchs out there, and the fresh water was kind of, the salinity was way down, but they were able to bury themselves, get away from that low salinity, and it means you can start tapering off a little bit, and they'll come back out of the mud and start filtering. But yeah, where we put them down in the deeper water, I went back the next day and looked around where they were all sitting on top of the dirt. I went back there the next day, and I didn't see but a few of the shells that were in the baskets.
Gotcha. So they're all acclimating and digging down in and doing what we want them to do.
Yep, they are filtering water. Is hopefully they get big enough where the crown conchs won't get them. But,
big enough they can self-reproduce too would be nice. Let them self-growing populations. That's what we need.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, they're close enough in proximity now. The magic when they're 8 months from now, when they do their first spawn, they're close enough proximity that hopefully everything gets fertilized and the little villagers drift off where they need to drift and settle down and make a new clam bed there. But that's hopes. We got our fingers crossed on that.
We all do.
That's for sure. Well, Blair, thank you so much for the update. Thanks for all that you're doing to help this lagoon system and to raise awareness about a species that we really weren't paying much attention to that is detrimental to the clams and actually tastes good and is harvestable. So hey,
they're actually those little Florida crown conchs are devastative to every kind of clam out there, whether it be razor clams, the coghill clams that we got, and all the little sand clams, everything out there, and even other mollusks out there. They're a bad mamma jamma when it comes to a conch.
They're top predator.
Yeah, they are. They
are apex, even though they move at a snail's pace.
Well, thanks so much for the call, Blair. We really appreciate it.
Well, appreciate everything you guys do, and it's all helping. Hopefully, we can get this on here pretty quick.
Heck yeah, buddy. Take care now. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care. Appreciate it.
Bye now. Hey, gang, we're going to take our last break of the day. When we come back, we got Dr. Mitch and the wrap-up from Catch a Memory Outdoors after these messages. This segment of the show is brought to you by me. We're having a big time during the break. Those of you guys and gals watching on Facebook, we appreciate you tuning in, and definitely appreciate the different comments that you're saying in there too as well. Dr. Mitch, we've talked about water quality, and of course we all know that's a big issue, and there's so many different people that are trying to do something about it now. And education, spreading the word, letting people know that if they're out there spreading fertilizer, they're basically wasting money. You're wasting your dollars, your hard-earned dollars, if you're applying fertilizer to your lawn. Now, ornamentals, vegetables, things like that, some of those things need a little extra help because we don't have the best soil here in Florida. But your grass will grow if you simply water it. It's not rocket science. But as far as the fishing goes, so we've got red snapper going on this weekend. Catches have been off the chart. Everybody I've talked to has been out there limiting out on their first drop. If they miss the fish on the first drop, they've been limiting out on their second drop, with their second bait that they put down. So we want to get the lagoon system back to that point. And earlier this year, with the drought that was going on, the lack of storm water bringing fertilizers, lawn fertilizers into the lagoon system, we had some pretty darn good looking water in this lagoon system, and the fishing was extremely good. I've seen more tarpon this year in the lagoon than I've ever seen up until the brown algae started, and then they started to kind of push back out. More black drum than I've ever seen, more snook than I've ever seen, and this year we finally got back to catching some decent quality trout again. There's always going to be those little 6, 8, 10, 12-inch trout, and that's a good thing. That means that reproduction is going on. But those 15 to 25-inch fish, we really have struggled the last 6 or 7 years to find any kind of numbers of those fish at all. And this year, both in the Banana River and the Indian River Lagoon system, we had good numbers of slot and above slot-sized trout. And those are the fish that are going to make the next wave of fish for us, because as they spawn, those fish are going to then, we're going to have new recruits come come from that. This water that we have now, though, I'm a little unsure about what's going on with it. I'm seeing a lot, we've had 3.5 to 4.5 weeks of rain now, and I'm seeing a lot of brown algae sprouting up in a lot of places. That's what pushed these fish out of here to begin with. That's what made those fish leave this area. And so I'm hoping that we won't see too much more brown algae growth. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first, knowing the conditions I know about in the lagoon, I'm surprised that there's any fish in there at all. But there are, and the fish are there. As you said, the reports, the tarpon, the trout in the spring, you couldn't get away from the trout. It was really good.
Great.
And
it was great.
And
fishing.
the mangrove snappers are increasing in the lagoon in abundance more than they probably have since I've been fishing up here, which is 20 years, which really amazes me. You go out there and I can't say instead of catching a catfish, but now the snappers are fighting with the catfish for your baits when you're down there.
Yeah.
Every day it gets warmer, and now we're through the longest day of the year, so to speak, and we haven't had any major fish kills yet. I keep my fingers crossed and hoping that I know that the ban on fertilizer during the summer months has really helped. I would like to see more and more people not fertilize at all.
Yeah, that's measurable.
Measurable. They've measured it. They've seen a difference. It clearly is shown up in the data. You can't deny it. And I'm hoping that's enough to keep us from going anoxic where the algae dies and takes all the oxygen out, and then we start getting no oxygen in the water, and then you have fish kills, which then takes more oxygen out of the water, it puts more nitrogen in the water, which then you have another algae bloom, so it's just self-fulfilling. It gets worse and worse. So
kudos to everybody out there that has either reduced or removed all lawn fertilizer application on their houses or their premises. Kudos to you guys. Keep up the great work. Keep spreading the word about that.
Oh, yeah. It's easy. You walk down the street and you can tell which neighbor is fertilizing their lawn. You don't have to see the chem green lawn signs that are on there, which is horrifying me. You could just see, you walk by, that house is green,
what I
that's
see
green.
what I see in my mind's eye when I see one of those spray services, lawn, little placards that says, hey, stay off the lawn for the next 24 hours or whatever. Every time I see one of those, I see that sign says that the person that owns that house, it says, I am destroying our lagoon.
Yeah, I'm
destroying it. I don't care about our lagoon. I only care about my green little plot of utopia that's a couple of square meters around my house, and I don't care about the lagoon, and I am killing it intentionally. That's what I see when I see those little spray service signs in people's lawns.
They should read their own spray signs because it says stay off this while it's wet, which means they're putting poison on there as well. Yeah. So they're poisoning themselves. They're poisoning the natural organisms in their soil that will help keep the grass going well. And then all this runoff goes right into the lagoon. So, they don't care about their neighbors. They don't care about the county. They don't care about the Indian River Lagoon that not everyone survives on, but so many people enjoy and survive on in this system. So I try to do it nicely. I try to, when I see them, I still try to educate them. If I have a pamphlet, which I have, I will give them a pamphlet. I'll get them on some email lists, which they may not want to be on.
But people move here for the water. People move here for the natural beauty of our lagoon systems. Nobody moved here that wanted to see mountains.
Right.
Nobody moved here that wanted to live in an arid desert type climate. Nobody moved here because they wanted to see snow. They moved here for the tropical beauty and the water. And we all have to take a part in being good stewards of this area. And it's just, like I say, it's a matter of education and just letting people know. You don't have to get, frustrated with them. I mean, I do, but you don't have to get mad about it. You just say, hey, look, just letting you know that, what you're doing is not healthy for the environment. And your lawn really doesn't need it. So going off of that, let's talk about one more thing. We talked about the renourishment on the beach. The renourishment happens because storms come in, wash away the dirt. And we've talked about the benefits and also the detriments of quote-unquote jetties.
Right.
And how they create beach in one aspect, but they, on the north side of the jetty with the way that our predominant flow is, but the south side of the jetty typically loses it. What if, instead of beach renourishment, where we're dumping millions and millions and millions of pounds of dirt back on the beach, in some cases it's trucked in dirt, it's not even natural sand that would come from the ocean bottom, and create the type of bait scenarios that you're seeing off of your backyard. You didn't move to the beach because you wanted to be able to see tarpon a half mile out.
No.
You moved to the beach because you wanted to be able to stand knee deep in the surf and cast to them. That's why you moved there, right?
We used to.
Yeah. So what if, we've thrown around a lot of different things to help with the beach, the erosion issues that we have at the beach. What if, instead of full-blown jetties, what if we just had little mini jetties that started at the dune line and only came 20 or 30 yards down the beach, so that only on the highest tides and the most severe weather, which is what typically erodes the beach the most, what if we had these spaced, whatever the spacing needed to be, to keep the dunes from eroding and keep the beach from washing away during those non-typical events, we'll call them? How about doing something like that as opposed to just continuing to pump sand back on the beach that then gets washed right back away? Well, what are your thoughts on that?
First of all, I like the idea of them pumping sand just offshore of the beach line to go back on the dune. They could be doing that 24/7 year round.
Okay.
And you don't have to truck in sand from landfills or areas that are supposedly equivalent sand, which they're not.
They're not.
But the concept of having these mini jetties equally spaced, that would be an interesting design you would have to experiment with. There's nothing wrong with that, because you would just need to put enough of them so that you weren't robbing the person, like you said, on the south side, the north side, and then somehow pumping that sand and putting up on the beach. I've always said on super low tides they should take bulldozers and move that sand that's just already come from the beach and put it right up on the dune.
Gotcha.
So there are things to do rather than bringing in sand from sand fills. We have as shortage of sand as it is on the East Coast. In fact, around the world, that places are thinking about buying sand from the Bahamas. It's crazy ideas like that. Yeah. But the way it's working now is not helping our fishing. I used to think it didn't make a difference, but this year I can really see the sand that they put on this last year. It's lighter than the sand that ever was there. So it's obviously walking in, and I'm hoping this is not what's keeping the fish up, because if it is, we're not going to see any fish along the beach this summer, because it's going to stay offshore.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Mitch, we are out of time. It's been 2 fantastic hours. As
Goes
always,
by fast.
As always, you're such a wealth of information. I love having guys like you on the show, because it lets our listeners get a better understanding of what's going on in the entire world, not just here in our backyard.